Hello and welcome to the Property Management Masterclass, a 6-part podcast series brought to you by Cottage Handbook and Your AirHost. My name's James Varley, the founder of Cottage Handbook, and our goal is to explain everything you need to know about effective short-term rental hosting and management. Over the course of this series, we'll cover all the basics and share actionable tips to help you build a sustainable business and deliver an outstanding guest experience. In this 5th episode, we'll discuss reviews and how you can secure a top rating from every guest. Now, before we jump into our conversation with Stefan from Your AirHost, I want to share some exciting news. On November the 8th, we are hosting a free educational event in London aimed at short-term rental hosts and property managers. The event will feature panel sessions, seminars, and exhibitors from the industry, and it will be a fantastic opportunity to learn, network, and grow your short-term rental business. Places are limited, so be sure to register today at holidaycottagehandbook.com/Your AirHost. And if you're interested in exhibiting at the event, please reach out to me directly over email, james@holidaycottagehandbook.com. Hope to see you there. Thank you for joining us for episode 5 of the Property Management Masterclass, brought to you by Cottage Handbook and Your AirHost. It's time now to introduce our special guest, the man who's been there and done it in the short-term rentals world. Stefan Hoffelner is the CEO and co-founder of Your AirHost, which is the leading STR management company in London. Good to see you, Stefan.
Lovely to see you too, James. Yeah, really excited about this episode. I think it's going to be one of my favourites.
Okay, and it's going to be about reviews, which is something you have mentioned a lot in every single episode, I believe. So tell us, how important are reviews in this business?
Look, I mean, without question, it is the most important part of running a short-term rental. I'm sure if everyone's kind of watched the episodes prior to this one, they're already going to be sick of hearing me talk about reviews. It was important when this business started, and it's become more important every single year in this business. I know Airbnb are actually removing the kind of bottom end of their listings on the kind of just based on reviews alone. So hopefully your listing, won't be anywhere near there. But it is becoming more and more important, and all of the platforms, bar none, are focusing on quality. So it's something that you have to do. I know Airbnb this year have launched the guest favorite badge, which is sort of, putting more emphasis on the property itself rather than the host. The host may have multiple listings, but that guest favorite badge really shows the properties that are good. And if you go on Airbnb, you do a search, the first kind of page that you see are going to be all the guest favorites in that area. So make sure you do as much as you possibly can to win that guest favorite badge on Airbnb, and to make sure that your reviews are as high as possible on all of the platform. It is without question the most important part of running a short-term rental business.
So tell us, what are the fundamentals of earning a great review?
So I think that kind of comes into right at the beginning of your short-term rental journey, making sure that the property is set up for success, that you've thought about all the aspects of your property, that you've styled it correctly, that you've put a decent bed in, that you've put nice quality linen on, that the property is set up ready to go. Not taking the approach which a lot of people take of, I'll build on this once I've proved the concept to myself. You need to make sure that the property is ready to welcome guests from day one. Wi-Fi connection is strong. As we mentioned, the bed is comfortable, the linen is good, all of those little details, and that it's aesthetically pleasing to guests, and that you've communicated with them quickly. You've been on hand to their requests. If a guest has asked you, I don't like the pillow that's in the property, it's too soft for me, try your best to accommodate them, and try your best to accommodate them as quickly as possible. And one of the best kind of tips that I can recommend is being personal with your guests. Showing your face at the property to welcoming there is a great tip if you're able to do so. Not everyone is able to do so all the time, but if you're not able to do so, pick up the phone and call them, introduce yourself. My name is Stefan, this is my short-term rental. Really happy to welcome you there. let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. Just being personal and letting them know that there's a person behind this short-term rental that they're staying in is a great tip and will carry it a long way. If something does go wrong, let's say, for example, the internet goes down, it's out of your control, and the guest calls you up and says the internet is down, and there's nothing that you can do about it for a few hours while the service gets put back on. If you've had that personal touch and that personal contact with the guest, it'll go a long way to ensuring the good review still remains. Whereas if you've been a bit distant, hid behind messages, that guest is probably more likely in that situation to mark you down a little bit for something that was out of your control. So do be personal as well. That will go a long way. Show your face, wear your best smile, and try and just show that you're the person behind it. That will help.
Problems in a strange way at a rental can actually help you get a good review if you solve them quickly. In my experience, I had one of my properties recently. The lady who was staying there contacted me and said, "Oh, the internet's gone off, the TV's gone off." But I got round there quickly, and it was just the fuse box, a switch had flicked, and sorted it out straight away. And if you do that, dealing with it quickly can make sure that you get that 5-star review.
I have another one recently in one of my properties. The guest was an elderly gentleman. The light in the bathroom went off. These things can happen. I went round there. We had a really nice chat. I stayed round there for a little bit, fixed the light for him, and left with a handshake. And he was thanking me so much. It's one of those things you can use it if you're personal. Have you not responded to that lady in your apartment when the fuse box went? Had I not responded, it just upsets the guest. So being as personable as possible, trying to deal with whatever situation arises. They will arise. There's no doubt for that. If you're running a short-term rental, over the course of the time that you are, there will be issues. This is normal, but it is exactly as you say. It's about how you deal with them, proactively dealing with them, and trying to be a bit personal with your guest. That will go a long way, and you might be able to turn a negative into a positive.
100%, yeah. So, following on then, in terms of excellent communication, how can your guest communication ensure that you get great reviews?
Yeah, speed is the number one kind of marker in this field. Making sure that you're responding as quickly as possible. If you can get that response time to below half an hour, an hour is kind of maximum. If you can get it to below half an hour as a matter of course, that's good. And then being helpful. If a guest asks you for something, as best you can, the answer is yes. Obviously, if it's a request which is completely, undoable, then you're going to have to say no. But my advice is, if you can do it, do it. If this is the business that you're in, if this is the business that you're chosen, making sure your guest is happy is paramount. Making sure that the review is 5-star, not 4-star, not 3-star, is paramount. So, I always take the approach, if the guest asks for something, say yes, deliver it as quickly as you can. And like we've both said, be as personal as you can. That's really going to help you securing that good 5-star review.
What are the ways that you prompt a guest to leave you a good review?
End of the stay, sending an automated message out to them. You can automate this so it doesn't take you any time. It doesn't cost you any time. And just say, here's a coupon for you to stay back with us again. If you book direct with me, here's £100 off. If you decide to leave us a good review, we'll leave £150 off. Just give them as much encouragement as you possibly can. And ideally, if the guest has had a great stay and you've had a good relationship with them, pick up the phone, ask them to call. It's worth its weight in gold. They're much more likely to respond to you calling them. If you've had some interaction with them and it's gone pleasantly, they're much more likely to respond to that. And you will see the improvement in your listing. If you've got 25, 30 good reviews on there from when you first started, it will be chalk and cheese. If you earn that guest favorite, it will definitely make you more money. So these steps, I couldn't recommend them enough. And I would say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And if you go ahead and you do get that guest favorite badge, you will see an increase in the performance of your listing.
Now, despite all these fantastic tips, sometimes you can follow everything and do everything by the book, and a guest, for whatever reason, gives you a below par review. I had a lady actually the other week, and she asked me loads of questions beforehand, can I bring an extra person? Can I do this? And I said, yes, no problem. And then at the end, she ranked it a 4 instead of a 5, but everything else was ticked 5 stars. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world, I think as a host and a property manager. So how do you deal with that occasionally when you have guests who just really, they should give you 5 stars, but they don't?
It really is, as you say, it's the most annoying part of the job. Getting what should be a 5-star review and it coming out at a 4-star. Like you say, you've done everything for that guest, you've done as much as you possibly can, and the guest leaves you a 4-star review. They can write things that also will turn people off and leave a 4-star review. We've seen that. The kitchen was a bit small and it's not suitable for longer stays. And, you've done absolutely everything for this guest. You've had 100 guests beforehand. Nobody's ever mentioned that the kitchen was a bit small as an example for it. And that will put guests booking longer stays off your unit. It's really frustrating. The best thing that you can do is respond quickly to the review, leave your post, and perhaps engage with the guest that's just come back and say, let them know. If you can and you feel that it's the right thing to do, pick up the phone and just let them know, in a polite way, that this is your business, that 4-star reviews are actually, not very helpful. And if she would consider changing it, that is an option. Obviously, you don't want to pester them. You don't want to come across in the wrong way. So it's a very delicate line to walk. But if you feel that you can walk that line, that could be a good first port of call. I wouldn't recommend trying that more than once, but you definitely want to respond to the review online. And state your case without kind of coming across whiny or anything like that, coming across very polite and very professional. But unfortunately, it's not going to help you. A 4-star review is not as good as a 5-star review, and it will cost you that very coveted guest favorite listing and that kind of perfect score. So it's frustrating. But if you do those few little steps, hopefully you'll be able to turn it around, and hopefully you'll be able to, another good tip, this is a really important tip, is making sure that the guests that come afterwards leave a 5-star review. And if you have had a guest that stayed recently as well that haven't left a review, try and contact them to leave a review as well. So you've got a few little tips there that can help.
Now, it happens rarely, but every now and again we have bad guests who perhaps they cause damage. Or I remember I had an issue where a guy, he damaged something and he actually paid for it straight away, no issue. But then when he left, I think he left the place in a bit of a mess. And most importantly, he left the front door open, which obviously is not ideal. So before actually reviewing him, I remember contacting him and saying, look, you've not only have you damaged something, but you've done X, Y, and Z. And before I had the chance to review him, he sent me a 1-star review as a retaliation. And that meant my listing was under review from Airbnb. And thankfully, I contacted Airbnb and it was soon sorted out. But those scenarios can be very, very testing. How do you deal with customers who, through their fault, really end up unhappy?
So it's a really delicate line, because the scenario that you've mentioned there can happen a lot. And if you try to charge a guest for extra cleaning because they've left the house slightly more messy than usual, and this is going to take an extra hour or two to clean, they can leave you a bad review in retaliation for that. So you really have to weigh it up for yourself. Do I want to engage with this guest and try and claim an extra 15-30 pounds, whatever it may be, for the extra cleaning, and risk that bad review? I can almost guarantee all short-term rental hosts that if you do get a 1-star review from that guest, it will cost you more than the 30 pounds. So it's a really fine line that you have to weigh up. And I would always prioritize the review that the guest is going to leave over claiming an extra few quid from the guest for any minor damages. Obviously, if it's substantial, you have to take that forward and you have to claim in that situation. But always take the approach that the review is more important than any incidentals. And what you don't want to do, unfortunately, it's just a position that we're in as hosts, is we don't want to run that risk So I would recommend, if possible, not claiming for those small damages and incidentals, and not engaging with the guest that stayed in anything that might antagonize them. Just unfortunate. And it's one of the reasons why I always recommend not cleaning the property yourself, because you may get sort of personal about it, whereas if a cleaner's gone and cleaned it all and you didn't know, that is a much better situation. And prioritize the review. It's the best piece of advice that I can give over claiming for any incidentals.
I met a guy last year at a conference who's got a few properties in London, and he said, irrespective of what happens, he always gives the guest a 5-star review. And he showed me his properties, and they were rated 4.99 on Airbnb. With that in mind, if you do have a terrible guest, should you be completely honest in the review that you leave them?
It's a great question, James. It is a great question. And what I would say is that the chap that you met has got the right approach. It's more important. What's more important to you? Leaving a bad review about somebody that's stayed in your short-term rental, and making sure that the public and everybody know about what's happened there, or getting 4.99 on your listings. And that's what you have to weigh up on your Libra scale. And I would suggest that, think with your business hat on. This is an investment. You're looking after your investment more, and that's what matters at the end of the day. If you get that 4.99 rating, and take that as you will, because sometimes a guest really deserves a bad review, and they've gone far too far. But step back, think about your asset, think about why you're doing this, and then proceed from there. If you really feel it's necessary, of course, go on and do it. If it's been too extensive, go ahead and do it. But remember, if that guest does leave you a 1-star review and you're unable to speak to the platform and get that removed, which is a very, very difficult process, that will hurt you more than it hurts him. So bear that in mind. That's a really important point to consider.
And we should leave on a positive note, actually, because the vast majority of guests, in my experience, are great. They leave the property as they find it. Fantastic, very personable. I would say not too far off 100%, definitely over 95%. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. We host thousands of stays every month, and I would say that if it's not 99% or 100%, it's really close to that. Most guests are absolutely lovely. They're traveling for legitimate purposes. They're not causing any problems, and it's just the small percentage of guests that can be a problem. And saying that, those are reservations that have been properly vetted. That we sort of operate minimum night stays, as we mentioned in another podcast. But if you're taking everything and anything, I would imagine that percentage drops down. So that's something else to consider as well. If you do all the work properly, I'd say 99% of your guests are going to be great. You will have that 1%. But most stays, you can rest assured, are going to be hassle-free. They're going to be lovely people. It's actually very nice to engage with a lot of them. You'll meet people from all over the world, and that's a real highlight of this business.
All right, that's just about it for episode 5 of the Property Management Masterclass. In our final show, episode 6, we talk about how to scale your short-term rental business, just like Stefan has done with Your AirHost. Catch the episode on our website, YouTube channel, or your favourite podcast platform. If you'd like to meet us both in person, make sure you join us for our free educational event for short-term rental hosts and property managers in London on November the 8th. Places are limited. Head to holidaycottagehandbook.com/Your AirHost to register. For more free education tips and trends from the STR industry, head to holidaycottagehandbook.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter, listen to our podcast series, and download a free ebook for hosts and property managers. And if you have rentals in London which require expert management, make sure you get in touch with Stefan and his team. Head to yourairhost.co.uk for further details, or call 0203 280 2975 or email hello@yourairhost.co.uk. That's it for episode 5. We'll see you soon.